going to In this video, we are going to take a look at loading in components, which are also are known as Revit families, and then also modeling some walls and looking at creating new wall types. So to get started on loading in components, I'm going to go to my Insert tab, and there's two different main options for loading in a family. If I click on the load family here, I'm actually going to switch to my Revit 2020 real quick for that. My 2022 is having some problems there. So if I click on load family, it's going to take me to the default Revit library. So all of these different categories, they're going to start to look familiar as we move throughout the course. They're pretty typical on how Revit categorizes the families and the categories throughout. So we have our annotations, and we know from our annotate tab that we talked about that that is going to be a 2D element, and so that an annotation, so like a tag, text, dimension, something along that line. And then there's a lot of other families in here that don't pertain to our discipline in interiors, but we do have casework here. So that's going to be your your countertops and your cabinets. So you can see you have base cabinets. We also have countertops, wall cabinets, shelving, etc. We do have some columns in here that could be more architectural columns that you might use in an interior space. We'll get into the curtain wall panels much later on. That's kind of more of a storefront type system. Then we have doors. Then there's some furniture in here. So you can kind of go through this and see what is in here and load some of the elements around and work with them. There's also the furniture system. And furniture systems are related more to like a systems furniture type of system. So I would suggest kind of sticking just with the furniture for now. We won't dive much into building furniture systems. That gets much more involved. And then let's see, there's plumbing. So anything that if you have water closets, toilets, sinks, urinals, all those types of elements that you might need for a restroom, you can find those in the plumbing area here. So I just encourage you to get in here and kind of work through some of these categories and play around with some of these elements. To load something in, what you would do is, let's go ahead and open up a chair. So I'm just going to select a chair. You'll see it gives you a little preview here on the right hand side. You can also select the multiples. If I go to the top and hold down Shift, you can select all of them within that category. But after that, all you would simply do is hit open here, and then it's going to load it into the project. I can't hit open because, again, I'm having some type of error right now on the computer, and it is freezing every time I do that. So we're just going to imagine that I hit open, and I'm going to hit cancel, and it's going to be the same next step. You may expect that chair would pop up in the floor plan and you would see it automatically, but that is not the case. So we still have to go to the command to place a component before you'll actually see it. So once I've loaded it in, and you want to make sure that you're not in any commands when you go to load a family. If you're in a command of a different category, it will only allow you to add categories of that type. So if I am placing casework and I'm still in the casework command, it would only let me place other case or load in other casework. So I always say just best practice, make sure you're not in any command at all before you go into load a family. But once I have that family loaded in, again, it won't pop up right away. I need to go back to my architecture tab and go to component. Then I can click on component, and the drop down here, the chair would be the first thing that popped up here as it was the last thing that I added. So at this point in time, I could then move my cursor into my floor plan and click to place. Moving back to Revit 2022, you also have, so there's still that load family, which is going to take you to the default Revit library again, but there is also the load Autodesk family. So I'm going to click on that. And then this will give you some similar search items. So you have different categories, you have different results. You can actually search up here for a certain type. If you're looking for a bookshelf or a specific item, you can search for that. So I'll go ahead and click the bar stool here, and I'm going to load that. So it's going to download it quickly. Again, it does not pop up right away. It's now a part of my project and it's in my project, but I need to go to my architecture tab and my component tab, and then I can click to place. You'll see the bar stool is the first one that popped up there. And now I have this bar stool family in my project. Going to my default 3D view, panning around, again, panning, holding down Shift and the wheel of the mouse at the same time. There you go. I'm gonna go ahead and add in, see if we can get some caseworker door here. Guess not. Guess we're sticking furniture. Let's see here. Go ahead and load in one of these lateral files. You can also place models in 3D. It's a little bit harder to determine where they're located, but that is an option. So you can see it's just a little bit harder to track them. Go ahead and pull this up over to my other element here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make some walls in here. So again, to do that, clicking on my architecture tab, going to my wall command, and that's putting me right into my sketch command for the walls. So I can quickly sketch some of these out. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about different types within Revit families. Right, so the Revit family is a individual file that is brought into a project. These files do exist independent of a project file, and so they are separate and they are project specific. So just because I have this bar stool loaded into one project doesn't mean that it is in all of my projects across the board. You have to bring in the families that you're going to use for your project. So similar to that, a lot of different families have different types. So if I click on this drop down here, we can see that the bar stool does not have any different types. It's just one. But something like this cabinet file, a lat drawer file, might have different types. So if I click on that properties bar, you can see that all of these different dimension sizes are here, but they are a different type. So let's get one here that's a different size. All right, so you can see now this one is a little bit wider here. We have a 60-inch wide versus a 48. So what that means is looking at the 3D view, these elements are very similar. Okay, so they're the same style. They have the same number of drawers, the same appearance. The only thing different about them for this is their size. All right, so that's what's defining them as their own type. There could be other elements that are making them their own type, such as materials, and we can take a look at that when we get into materials later on. But for now, the main concept is just to know that Revit families can have different types. And for any family that is parametric, you can create different types as well. So if I wanted a lat file that was, let's say, only 3 feet wide, I know this family is parametric because of all the different types and the measurements that are here. And parametric just means that it has parameters that are set up that allow you to control certain elements within the project. So if I wanted to create a new type here, I'm going to go up to edit type. And the first thing I want to do is duplicate right away. If I just start editing things here, I'm going to be editing this element here. So if I switch that width to 2, oh, that one's already at 3 feet. We'll make one that's 2 feet wide. But if I switch that to 2 feet right now, it would edit this type right here. So if I'm making a new type, the very first thing I want to do is duplicate. And then I'm going to rename it so that I can keep my type straight. All right, so I'll make that 24 inches and I'll go here to 2 feet. All right, so these are my parameters. These are my options for elements that I can adjust. So I have a depth, a height, and a width. So I'll go ahead and adjust my width to 2 feet. And you can see how that adjusted the model because it's parametric. So I do want to go ahead. I'm going to use my copy command, modify to end that command. And I'm going to go back to the original one. So you can see this one, that was the one that we started with, and then we duplicated it to make a new type. We adjusted the parameters and we made that new one 24 inches wide. And so now we have 3 different types placed in our model. There's 3 different types of the same family, right? And you can see here on the top, you can see it's all labeled the same family, multiple types selected. If I were to select these and the chairs, it's just going to tell me it's multiple families selected. There's too much variance there and too much data for it to be able to analyze that. So in a similar fashion, you can also create new wall types, new door types, window types. all sorts of different elements here. So let's take a look at modifying a wall type. There's a bunch of different default ones here in Revit. So once I select that, we can see that is the generic 8-inch. That is the default that Revit will start every project with. But if I click on the drop down, you can see I have a few different options already built in here. And I also have the ability to edit the type and create my own. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit type. Again, I want to make sure that right away I duplicate this. All right, now I'm going to go just 20 inches just so it's very easy to see that this is a different wall type. You can see right now the width still says that it's 8 inches wide. So to edit that, I'm going to go into the structure and I am going to change the width of the structure. I'm going to hit preview there so you can see it in a floor plan. And instead of 8 inches, I'm going to type in 20 inches. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, that jumped it up to a 1'8" width, which is what we wanted. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK again. And you can see that that wall got much thicker and is now its own type. Now that this type exists, I can switch other walls to that type if I would like. And now it is there in the project for use. Right, this is going to be really important too when we get to applying materials to walls. So just keep in mind that you can have families, and these families can have different types that are similar to each other but have different aspects. And that's all for this video.